6th meeting of the Ames Community School District Board meeting. I'll call the meeting to order and take approval of the agenda.
Move approval. Second.
Moved by Deardorff, seconded by Briggs. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Director Colton, will you please read the mission statement?
The mission of the Ames Community School is to ensure that all learners develop the knowledge, skills, attitudes, values, and personal esteem necessary to grow in and shape a changing society.
Thank you very much. I will go ahead and read our statement on discussion items and public involvement. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. And our first discussion tonight is committee work. Board, do we have any updates that you would like to highlight from our packet?
We had a TLC meeting last Thursday, and we had some updates from 5 different principals about standings with the Iowa School Report Card and that kind of stuff. And then also, they talked about what they're currently doing in terms of student engagement and working on test scores and all of that. And the biggest thing that really stood out to me from all 5 of the principals was that they're focusing on the whole student. They're looking at more than just test scores. They're looking at everything in regards to the student. They're looking at the culture in the buildings. They're looking at making it a warm and welcoming environment. It was really heartwarming to hear that from everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. We're Gina and I are on the TLC committee, and yes, I got the same impression. They're looking at the whole child, and they're doing really lots of neat stuff. Every building had something different to share. So yes, I was very impressed.
Any other updates?
I can speak about the work of the Equity Committee. We have several minutes from several meetings in the packet, and basically what we've done as a group is we have agreed to a mission statement, a vision statement, and a series of goals. This past meeting, we as a group broke into 3 different subgroups where we'll focus on achieving the 3 goals that we prioritize. So we'll spend our time touring equity offices in the state to see what other districts are doing with regard to equity. We're going to start reviewing employment data to look for the proportionality of representation of teaching and support staff to our student population, and also looking at disciplinary records to see if we can identify disproportionate discipline and where those events might be happening. And so we'll be coming together on April 23rd, I believe, to touch base as a group about what we found out so far.
The County Conference Board did meet to approve the budget on March 7th, so that's moving forward. One note is there was some discussion about potentially having the City Conference Board and the County Conference Board join at some point to try to gain some efficiencies there. So it's probably a long, drawn-out conversation that'll happen over the coming years, but we are one of the few communities in the state that have both a city presence and a county presence for our size, so more to come.
Okay, thank you. Any other updates?
Director Franson and I met with a group of parents from the dyslexia group in town, and they are suggesting that we form a task force. It's a collaborative work, so they brought up several good ideas that we can all tackle together. So it was a very positive meeting. It was really good energy, collaborative work. I was very content after we left that meeting, and we will bring it back to the board possibly the next the next meeting.
Yep, we will, board leadership will discuss it at our next agenda setting meeting. So we appreciate, but we do really appreciate the collaborative approach that was brought forward. So thank you. Do you have any legislative updates for us, Director Rosso? I can tell you're ready to give us all sorts of stuff. Thank you.
Well, there's a lot been going on down in Des Moines, as many of you have been reading in the papers, and I could sit here with a very long list of items, but I'm trying to really limit myself to the most important and 4. So I'm going to talk about those first. First of all, one that actually came up as a concern for the school district and public schools throughout the state recently, because when the discussions when they started about ending property tax backfill was in the House was kind of limited primarily to just cities and counties, which are bad enough for property taxpayers. But the program that was passed in 2013 that was beginning to be talked about was going to hold the school districts, leave them out of the equation. But that's not the case. Proposals have now been started to be talked about in the Senate, and now as a result in the House, that would also mean the backfill that was agreed to in 2013, that state backfill money, state dollars that goes back to school districts, cities, and counties to make up for those commercial property taxes that were reduced in 2013 would be a dramatic effect on our school districts. For example, for fiscal year 2019, Chris has roughly estimated that we would be losing $1.3 million out of our budget. That's real money, which many of us sitting up here, all of us sitting up here, are very concerned about. So please contact your House representatives and state senators and let them know that that is not something that really they should be keeping their promise to communities and school districts to continue with that property tax backfill. The second item that I'd like to speak about is more positive. The penny sales tax, we've had very good positive information we're hearing from both the House passed it to continue and extend it to 2050, and the Senate is considering it now. It's out of committee. But we still need to keep the pressure on, so if you can contact your state senator, remind them that that is critical money for our infrastructure of schools, to keep them maintained, and also to do additions when needed, and other technological uses. We use that in our one-to-one technology program, those funds. The third issue, which is pleased to see the legislature taking up this year, was the school lunch shaming, anti-shaming bill. That is going to provide not only restrictions to school districts for the types of lunch shaming that we addressed as a board last year, but it also would provide school districts with more flexibility with helping them collect those unpaid funds, and help us also encourage community relationships like we had with Fresh Time and many other actually groups that have been stepping forward to help us reduce those funds on a local level. So the state legislation would be helpful in because right now we're limited by some of the actions that we can take in collecting those funds. So please contact your state senators regarding that matter. That's where the bill is really getting the most action right now. And lastly, one that was a surprise to many of us, and I know if Dr. Taylor was here, he'd probably even say something about it, because when I pointed it out to him last Tuesday, he was like, "What? Why?" There's a proposal in the state Senate to limit school boards to only allowing a school board bond election once a year, and only in the fall elections. which makes no sense. It really limits the ability of school districts to plan, schedule. There are times that Jerry can share with us many times that, timing of a bond passage, and then when we go to get bids for construction projects, those are very sensitive and can save school districts substantial amounts of money over the time. So the timing of a bond election can really have an impact. So why this was proposed, when Dr. Taylor asked me, I didn't really have an answer because it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But it really is a matter of local control. And we've seen a lot of actions taken by the current legislature to limit local control, and it's frustrating. So again, with that, please reach out to your House reps and senators, let them know that limiting school boards school bond elections to once a year would not be beneficial to public schools in the state. And then lastly, I'd just like to say thank you to representatives, our local representatives, Heddens, Wessel Crushell, and Senator Cornbach for their ongoing support for Ames Community School District's legislative priorities and public education throughout the state. They've been really with us on these issues and many others that are on the list. Like I said, I could have come up with a really long list tonight, but I tried to limit myself to just 4. So, and any questions I'll be happy to answer after the meeting.
Thank you. Thank you for keeping us on top of those, Director Rosser. For the good of the public, this is the time of year when things change daily for us, so it's very helpful to have one of our board members who's really trying to pay attention and to help us as our responsibility is really to represent our interests as a school district and help our state representatives understand how the decisions they're making in Des Moines impact us and the planning that our staff is doing. So thank you. Any other updates from committees? Any comments from the public on the committee reports? Seeing none, we will go on to the next item, which is the 2018-2019 district fees. Dr. Ross?
You'll see some pretty minimal changes to this document from last year. One of the things to point out is on the second page, the elementary K-5 list has been changed simply to simplify it to reflect the fact that $10.50 is the maximum that can be charged, and that reflects the cost of the most expensive periodical on that list. The reasoning behind that is because there's just a lot of differences across buildings and across grade levels about what the periodicals are that are used in the classrooms. So it was just to simplify that and also exclude planners because those are not currently in place. Under middle school, we struck the band workbook because that's no longer in use. And then finally, the industrial technology department. The curriculum has changed there, the delivery has changed, so the course no longer exists where those particular materials were needed, and so I think those are the ones that, or at least part of that will be showing up in a later document for disposal, for approval during action items.
Great. Any questions for Dr. Ross on these district fees? Okay. Any comments from the public on district fees? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the public forum, and Gail Seiler is the first one signed up.
I'm here, Gail Seiler, 420 Briarwood Place in Ames. I'm representing ASAT, the Ames Youth and School Action Team. Just to remind you who we are, we're a group of a nonpartisan group of community members whose goal is to improve educational opportunities for Black and Hispanic students because these groups are experiencing the greatest disparities in Ames school. We've been in existence since January 2017 and have had a representative at every school board meeting since February 2017. We've also been attending board committee meetings when we can and participating in other meetings with the district. Our steering committee continues to meet every 2 weeks. I outlined this history to remind you of our commitment to the issue of racial inequity in Ames schools. Since our beginning, we've continued to ask the same questions about the racial and ethnic disparities in achievement, in discipline, and in access to advanced tracks and courses. The questions we ask are simple. Why do these disparities exist, and what is being done to address them? Perhaps there are things that are being done that we don't know about. However, from our perspective, here's what we see. In the area of discipline, as far as we know, there has been no review of disciplinary data and processes, and no modifications to disciplinary policies to address the disproportionalities that exist. This issue was raised by representatives of Ames before ASAT even existed. And I raised this issue again at a recent Dialogue with Directors meeting. So we ask again, what data has been studied to understand these discipline disparities, and what actions have been taken to address them? In the area of tracking, we have repeatedly called attention to the need for a review and revision of the policies and processes for giving students access to advanced courses and programs. We were told by the administration at a meeting in November that this review and revision would be completed by January 2018 so that it would be in place for the following year. However, based on information being sent home, it appears that the process looks the same as last year. So we ask, what changes have been made to ensure that access to advanced tracks and courses is not based primarily on standardized tests, which by your own admission are biased and flawed? What changes have been made to ensure that better representation of students of color in these, that there is better representation of students of color in these advanced learning opportunities, and to ensure their success once there? Also in the area of achievement, the district has expressed concern for the so-called achievement gap, and goals have been set to address it. Testing that will be included in the next school report card was completed in this past January and February. So we ask, what academic changes have occurred in district classrooms between February 2017 and January 2018 that might lead to improvement in performance for Black and Hispanic students? I think we all agree that curriculum is a factor in student achievement. ASAT has asked that cultural relevance be considered as part of all curriculum reviews and decisions. The importance of students finding themselves and their experiences in what they are learning was highlighted on today's River to River show on IPR, when two professors from the School of Education here at ISU spoke about the importance of students' identities connecting with the curriculum. So we ask, what curriculum reviews have been done to examine cultural relevance of curriculum, and to what outcome? You've probably noticed that we have not spoken at a school board meeting in a while, but we have been attending, as I said, board committee meetings and utilizing other opportunities to raise these issues. However, we do not feel that there's been much action. So we are taking this opportunity tonight to remind you that we are still here and that we are still asking these questions. Why do these racial and ethnic disparities exist, and what is being done to address them? Thank you.
Thanks, Gail. Alex Jacobson.
My name is Alex Jacobson. I have two kids at school district. One of them, third child just finished, 2 years ago, finished high school. I'm a little nervous to speak today because what I'm going to say, in my opinion, it's subject I talk about. It's very important for the schools, and it's not just about the grades. I believe it's life and death issue. So it's about a new school project. First of all, about some financial research what I did. I found like when we start elementary school project, we completely was average on the national like 40, we've spent $55 million for 5 schools. On information I found, like for elementary school child, nationally average is like 40, less than 44, but for high school it's like 45. Elementary need a little more space, but per square feet it's a little cheaper. High school needs some more like auditorium and locker rooms, but it's like 44 compared to 45. So we come to high school, it's increased almost double. We want to spend $105 million for high school. I don't see, and actually for elementary school have more kids. We have like 1,600, if I understand, in elementary schools. In high school, it's only 1,400. So I don't see any reason why it's doubled, and I don't see, I even don't speak about asset we're going to lose. It's maybe doesn't fit fully purpose, but it's like, in my estimation, like around $45 million. So it's additional for this cost, we're going to lose $45 million. And $8 million we're going to lose to how we call destroy it. Sorry, my poor English. I hope you understand what I'm talking about. So huge, huge difference, a lot of money, and it's not the worst. Worst when we build like more than average unnecessary facility, it's be a lot of more operational expense. And one of the reasons I hear all the time, oh, we want to save operational expense. We're going to, according to what I get, we're going to spend $80,000 per year to put such a, like $100 million, it's not make sense either, but it's be much more operational expense. So it's mean less money for these kids, for programs, for teachers, for education generally, because operational, we're limited by operational money by the law. So my next most important subject is actually safety of these new buildings, new complex. I spent 7 years in Israel to protect public schools. Israel known like a place when schools exposed to terrorist attack, and they have a lot of experience how to protect it. So I have experience to do this and knowledge to do this. So mass shooting last couple months, it's now not just a news, but it start to touch all over the state. It doesn't matter what your political orientation, what's your opinion about the weapon. It's a big right now. So why on the Florida and Las Vegas it was so many casualties? Because it was open space. Officer Briggs, he served in the military. He was in Iraq. He probably understands what I'm talking about. Why it's important. When you have small space and you start to operate with weapons, you need to go to target. When you have the distance, you just keep your weapon on the target and you continue to shoot. Now, also 5.56 have high velocity. So if you close range, it means debris come to you. It's a lot of chances be ricochet and hit you. So when we have open, how you planning to build the school, it can provide really big disaster. Like I just give you one scenario, not potentially scenario. It's if 3 people come and 2 of them stand between the doors, and one of them just go to 2nd floor and start to shoot the open space. Until enforcements come, it will take like 5-7 minutes. I guarantee you 400-500 bodies of these kids be laid down on the floor. I don't understand why you don't want to research this, why you don't go to check it. It's mean you make less entrances. Less entrances, it's less escape rooms. it's for potential shooter, he need only one entrance to come. Even it's secure, when they come already to door, it's too late. In Israel, from this reason, school they secure by perimeter, not guards they not sit in the entrance because it's late. In case of national disasters, it's also like if you have a big flat, big like open space roof, in big explosion or earthquake, it's collapsed and it's not much survivors. When it's partitions, it's a lot of pocket space, pockets when people can survive. In fire, it mostly depends on the system, but also less entrances, it's less pointed, less escape points. And the flood, it's have the advantages and disadvantages.
I don't mean to cut you short, but you've had almost twice the allotted time that
Okay,
you're
I
supposed
apologize.
to have.
I apologize, I didn't, I finished my point. What you're going to do, it's more dangerous, it's less money for the education, and I don't see reason why it's double, almost triple, we pay what we paid last time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson. We will go ahead and move to the consent items.
I'd like to move the consent items for approval.
I'll take the second. Approved by Rosser, seconded by Benkin. Discussion? Go ahead, Dr. Ross.
Okay. First of all, we have minutes from the board meetings held on February 16th and 19th, as well as March 5th. Claims and payroll for February of 2018. Financial reports for February 2018. Personnel reports, including, I want to point out the voluntary retirement of Teresa Derry, who's been an EA with us for 32 years, which is a pretty amazing number for EAs. And Jeanette, I know that you'll understand that. And a little bit later, we'll be thrilled to introduce to you Christy Mixdorf, who will be our new Edwards Elementary principal. We have gifts to the district, and that includes a $50 cash donation for overdue lunch accounts on the debt pay down from Peter Gedluski. And Bethesda Lutheran Church has provided $711.70 also for overdue lunch accounts debt pay down. An anonymous donor provided $100 for fellows overdue lunch accounts. Johnston Properties has provided $500 for Sawyer's leveled books. The Golden K Kiwanis have provided $500 in cash for Northwood Preschool Center. The Iowa State University Women's Club has provided weighted shoulder wraps and lap pads for the district special education program, and I've actually seen those in Darcy's office, and they're pretty amazing tools for helping calm students down. And then Richard and Shirley Warren have provided 33 3-ring binders, magazine racks, and miscellaneous folders for the district. A note of thanks will go out to each of those donors. We also have contract agreements, including an agreement with Camp Marketing Services, LLC, for online registration system for the Super Summer program. And that basically will be used for the extended learning program for their Super Summer registrations. We also have an agreement with John Kinley, who has been serving for the past, since 2011, so the past 7 years, as the Story County Consortium Director, and it provides him with a 1% increase for his annual compensation for that position. We also have an agreement with the String Beans Performance Group for performances on April 6th for at Northwood for the kickoff of their Literacy Night. We also have a contract for an extended agreement with Bonnie's Barricades. This was approved by the board last month, but this is an extension that will get us through the end of the year until the permanent traffic light is installed outside of Fellows, and by all accounts, it's been a much better transition with the current configuration. We also have an agreement for DJ services for the prom, which will be held on April 14th, and a new agreement for internet services. This will be a 36-month contract with Unite Private Networks LLC. It will replace our current provider, which is ICN Services. This was done through a bidding process, and it will give us faster services and about $1,000 a month less than our previous provider.
And continuous open enrollment.
And thank you very much. Continuous open enrollment. We have 12 continuous open enrollment agreements or arrangements, and that I think then gets us through the list.
They keep coming in. Thank you. It was moved by Rosser, seconded by Benkin. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. We're going to take a quick moment, since we have just officially approved our personnel report, to let Lisa Nagus take the floor with our new principal, Mixdorf.
I got a good job tonight being able to make this introduction. A couple months ago, Dave Peterson, who is our current Edwards Elementary principal, notified us of his intent to retire in the near future, and we put together a multi-step selection process, and we had school personnel take part in the process. We had teachers, support staff, we had district administrators, as well as the elementary principal team, and Kristen Barber, who is our Northwood principal, all involved in the process. And the person that they selected to become the new principal is Christy Mixdorf. And I believe that Dr. Ross offered her the position over spring break, and she accepted. Christy's background includes working as a kindergarten teacher. She has also served as a K-5 instructional coach at one of the elementaries in Ankeny, and most recently, she has been the Director of Teaching and Learning at North Polk Community. So she might just want to say a couple words to you, but I'm very, very pleased to introduce Christy Mixdorf to you.
Thank you. I am beyond excited to be joining the Ames Community Family School System here. I know I've learned a ton from the interview process, and excited to be a part of the team that provides education. And I can't wait to meet my families at Edwards and learn alongside of them and be a part of that process for a lot of students and families and staff. So thank you, and thank you for being so welcoming, everybody, throughout the whole process. I feel like I'm already at home, so I'm excited about that.
And on behalf of the board, welcome to Ames. We're really happy to have you here. Thank you. And thanks for coming tonight. We'll go ahead and move on to action items. The first one, policies for action.
I move the board approve the policies as presented.
Second.
Moved by Briggs, seconded by Benkin. Any discussion?
Just in case anyone needs a fresh update on this, since it has been a little bit of time. There were no changes to the first two policies that are listed there. However, there are changes to the policy for outstanding checks, and that was merely language taking from 1 year to make it 2 years, and then striking a lot of other language in there that wasn't necessary. The purpose behind that is to put it in line with Iowa code. And then the other policy that had some changes was the one on student records. And the changes there were specifically geared towards EK 8th grade, and that's add language, records electronically stored for all students who leave the district. Pardon me. And language for special education records, specifying that the records will be electronically stored as well.
Thank you. We will go ahead and all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item 13, the natural gas sales agreement.
I move the board approve the agreement with the Centerport Energy for the purchase of natural gas for the high school and middle school buildings.
Second.
Moved by Rosser, seconded by Benkin. Discussion. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item 14, sale of property.
I move the board approve the sale of industrial technology shop equipment from Ames High School by means of Craigslist.
Second.
Moved by Benkin, seconded by Briggs. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item 15.
I move the board approve the donations of 2 sets of bleachers to the Boone County Fairgrounds.
Second?
Moved by Rosser, seconded by Deerdorf. Discussion?
One question, Jerry, I know the answer to this, but they're going to come and get them and haul them away for us, right? Okay, you don't need to come over here and say that. Thanks.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item 16, a 1-year extension of the agreement with Durham.
I move the district enter into a 1-year extension with Durham School Services LP for transportation services and fleet lease for the 2018-2019 school year.
Second.
Moved by Briggs, seconded by Perez. Discussion.
I thought we voted on this already.
No.
We just talked about it a lot.
Yeah, we've talked about it, but this
Okay.
part we didn't do.
All right.
What we did approve
go
was
ahead.
to have Chris enter into a negotiation with them, reference this specifically. And the reason why we asked for that was because we wanted to have a independent study done regarding our busing services and feasibility for what that would look like if we were to bring it internal, which we haven't heard back on that part of it yet. This is just merely authorizing Durham that continuation. The other reason why I pushed for this particular topic was because after talking with several people in the industry that would be asked potentially to help start up a new company should they come in, it was strongly impressed upon me that the time frame to do that would be better served in the August-September timeframe as opposed to that December-January timeframe for contracts. So this also gives us a chance to set up, if we need to, RFP at a time that's a lot better for the process so that if we do have a transition, that transition is more seamless and we have less headaches at startup.
And Chris, can you just give us where we're at with the consultant right now, what stages we're at?
The consultants were in the district at the end of January and met with myself and Dee Hare, as well as representatives from Durham. I had a lot of information collected for the RFP that I was able to give them, so a lot of the information they might have had to gather I'd already done. They had requested us to get some information from some of our neighboring school districts. We've done that and sent that off to them. Had an email last week from a couple pieces of other information, so they are working on it. I would expect later in the spring that we'll have the report back.
Great, thanks.
All right, moved by Briggs, seconded by Perez. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Nay.
Passes 6-1. Item 17, set public hearing on 2018-19 certified budget.
I move the board direct the board secretary to publish the proposed budget and to set a date and time of public hearing for April 9th, 2018 at 6:30 p.m.
Second.
Moved by Rosser, seconded by Benkin. Discussion.
Good evening. Hopefully the mic is on. This is the first time we've had a chance to look at the budget. No, I don't. I am going to go, the dot cam's on. So we're going to have a chance, usually we have 2 meetings in March, so it's been a long time since we've had a meeting. Just to give some background to the new members, schools statutorily have to approve their budget by April 15th. In order to approve the budget, we have to publish in the form that the state says at least 10 days before the date of the public hearing, which means I need to publish this week. Part of that action is just to direct the board secretary, myself, to publish the budget as proposed. One of the things before I start going through some of the numbers that I want to say is that between the school aid formula and the taxes available in other funds, the budget is what the budget is. The numbers won't change. The amount of revenue we're going to get won't change. How we allocate resources within that budget is still up for discussion. You'll see a superintendent's budget coming forward in the next couple weeks to talk about uses for any new monies and so forth. But as far as the total resources don't change. So I don't want you to think that this, by publishing this, that it's locked in stone and there's no other conversation by the board. That certainly isn't the case. I will tell you that the budget that I prepare is, and some of the members that have been on the board for a while can attest to this, close to 200 pages long. I did not give you all that information this evening. I pulled out the pieces that you need, as well as a few that I think you might be interested in. And as Eric would say, it is a lot of spreadsheets in play to get to my budget. So, this is the format that the state requires us to publish the budget. So this is actually what you are approving tonight. That will be in the Ames Tribune later in the week. We will have a public hearing on March 9th at 6:30 p.m. on the budget, and we'll adopt it at that point. One of the other things that I might add, and I put it in the write-up, is that the timing of the bond referendum is a little tricky with the budget, because I have to go ahead and get this done and published and ready to go to meet the April 15th deadline. But upon a successful referendum, things will change a little bit in our bond situation, in that right now I've got an estimate in there for a pre-levy, but if the bond passes, we will have to issue bonds yet this year, which will require payments in January and June of next year, which means that some of that pre-levy will go towards prepayment. So I've done the budget as best I can at this point, but it will change before April 9th, and you will have a resolution one way or the other to either approve just the pre-levy or to approve the pre-levy and the prepayment on March 9th before you adopt the budget.
Would that be April 9th?
Sorry?
Yeah. Chris, would that
April
be April
9th.
9th?
What did I say?
You said March 9th.
I'm sorry.
That's
I'm
okay.
a bit behind. This page gives you a side-by-side of the property tax rates from fiscal year 18 to fiscal year 19. The rate last year was $14.34. Well, it was actually $14.34129, and the proposal this year is for $14.34147, so up just slightly by 0.00018 cents. So not even close to a penny. One thing that I will point out is that the amount of the cash reserve levy is going up significantly. As you've known in the past, there are cyclical things that happen with cash reserves. We get to a point that we have too much cash and the state tells us we can't levy any, we've got too much, and then we have to draw it down. And we've gotten to the point where we've drawn our cash down where we need to replenish our cash for cash flow purposes. So we are levying the maximum cash reserve levy this year, and I'm going to show you how that's calculated in a little bit. So that shows that that's gone up significantly. In order to accommodate that, we have a very large balance in our management fund, so I'm not levying much in for management this year. Management covers our property insurance, our workers' comp insurance, our early retirement programs. We have almost a $5 million budget in there, or balance in there, so it's been recommended that we draw that down a little bit by our financial advisor. And then our debt service levy is going down significantly. That is because we are not going to do as significant of a pre-levy as we had planned originally, because we need the cash. But I've been working with Tim Oswald, and we still, between the pre-levies and any new bonds that we will ladder during the, I'm going to need my water, I think. I'm sorry, I am still getting over the flu from last week, and so my throat is not up to par. So we've been working it out so that as we go through the next few years, that we would ladder the bonds for the high school and pre-levy the rest of the elementary bonds and still keep that tax rate the same. But this is one of those adjustments we needed to make this year in order to, and we will need to do this again next year for our cash reserve. We'll need to maximize the cash reserve again next year. Any questions on the tax rate itself?
You mentioned in the management fund that our cash balance was sufficient? What's a good benchmark for that number to be at?
Well, most of our insurances come due in the summer. Most of our property insurance comes due in July. Workers' comp is paid out over 10 months. All of our early retirement gets paid out in July and August. Well, at least the cash payments of it. We continue to pay insurance for people up till age 65. So you need probably about 1 year's worth of expenditures, and our expenditures are less than $1 million a year, so.
Okay. Thank you.
I think in the past, we increased the management levy some to keep the tax rate the same, so we built up some balance in there. You will see the property valuations. This gives you an idea. You can look at this and see what makes up our valuations by different classes. On the left-hand side is the 100% value. That's the assessed value. And then the taxable value is after rollbacks, equalization orders, all that. Taxable valuation is actually what our taxes are calculated on, so that's what we're mostly concerned with. Although the 100% valuation is used for debt service, so, but we did have a 7.5% increase in valuations this year, which is really good, which is helping us maintain our tax rate and be able to do the things that we need to do. I like this, and you're not going to be able to see all of it, but you really just need to see the bottom part here. What this does is it tells you from year to year what happens to the taxes on different values of property. So you will see, and I'll just use a $100,000 house in FY18. The taxes were $747.02. The residential rollback is something in code that ties the valuation of residential property to ag land in Iowa and says that residential property cannot increase no class is allowed to increase by more than 4%, and residential is not to increase more than what ag does. So of your $100,000 house, last year, 56.9391% of that was taxed. You're not taxed on 100% of your value. It's rolled back. Last year it was 56.93%. This year the rollback is 55.62. So individuals will actually pay taxes on a little less of the value of their house. Now I hold this static. I show a $100,000 house the prior year and a $100,000 house this year because there's no way to know in individual houses how much might have increased from valuation and so forth. But given that the same $100,000 house last year or fiscal year 18 would have paid $747, and next year we'll pay $728, so a decrease of not quite $20. Commercial property stays just about, for each $1 million, it's a 16-cent increase, so pretty much held steady for commercial. The other at the bottom then is I just give what's happened in the last 5 years to taxes. So you'll see for that same $100,000 house that in the last 5 years, the difference in the taxes is $17. So an individual's tax bill would have been $17 higher than it was 5 years ago. I will point out, you will see that the commercial is down $722 a million. That is what Director Rosser was talking about in the C&I replacement, where they rolled back the value of commercial and industrial to 90% of the total value. So that's where you see that big decrease. And that's the promise that they made, that they would replace those taxes to the local governments. I like to show this chart because it just gives you a snapshot of where we are in Polk County as far as our tax rate and our valuation. For FY18, I don't have FY19 for all the other school districts, so I have to go back a year. But we are 6th in the county in tax rate, and we are 2nd in valuation per student. and you usually see a correlation between the tax rate and the valuation per student. So for instance, in Ballard, you'll see their first in tax rate and 10th in valuation per student. That's the correlation you normally see. The lower valuation that you have per student, the higher your tax rate typically is. We went up a notch this year. For some reason, Colonesco's rate went down $2 per thousand, so they must have had some bonds that fell off or something. So this page is just my page of that first one that I showed you that is the format that we will publish in. And then the next couple pages give you the detail of how we get to those numbers for each fund. The general fund, the activity fund, management, PEPL, sales tax, debt service, nutrition. So for fiscal year 19 budget, fiscal year 18 re-estimated, and fiscal year 17 actual, those numbers are presented for you that show you how we get to those columns on that total page. This gives you a quick snapshot of new funding. So you will see our 111.8 increase in students for between the fall of 16 and the fall of 17. The 1% allowable growth, or state percentage of growth it's now called, generates $67 more per student. So that will generate just over $1 million of new funding. We did have an increase in open enrollment in as well. That has been netted against the slight increase in open enrollment out. And so those two things together, plus the increase for preschool, gives us the total amount of money that I consider is available for salaries and benefits increases and so forth. So ongoing expenses, recurring expenses.
So the $1 million is what the natural transition from the 1% and just our increase enrollment, but it is that open enrollment that's bringing in the 450,000. So that right there is the impact that increased open enrollment has on our budget.
Yes.
Thank you.
For just that year.
Correct.
Obviously that's not the total amount we get from open enrollment. That's the increase
That's
from
the
open
change
enrollment.
from last year. Yes, yes.
This page, if anybody's interested in it, I'd be happy to go through it and explain it, but it's the formula for special education on how we derive our special education dollars. It is kind of a complicated formula, and I like to be able to show it, to how we get to those special ed dollars, but I'm not going to go into great depth on that. I will spend a little time on this. This is the analysis of the maximized authorized budget and property taxes. And this is where I was trying to explain where we get, how much we can levy for cash reserve. School districts aren't allowed to just levy whatever they want. There are restrictions within the statute. So one of the things that we have to be, two things we want to be concerned with is unspent authority or spending authority, because we also are not allowed under statute to spend whatever we want. We not only have to have revenue, we have to have the authority to spend it. For those that are new on the board, the best example I like to use of this is Mom gives you $10 to go to the store, and she asks you to get milk and bread, and she knows it's going to cost $4.50, and you have authority to spend $4.50. You have $5.50 extra that you have on hand, but you don't have the authority to spend it. Mom said you couldn't spend it. So that's how state finances work. We not only have to be able to have the cash on hand, we have to have authority to spend it. So you will hear us a lot of times talking about spending authority and making sure that we're staying within that spending authority and not just what we have on hand to spend in cash.
So they don't let us keep the change.
No, you have to return the change to Mom.
Right.
And just like Mom has ways to deal with you if you don't pay attention to her rules, the state has ways of dealing with us if we don't pay attention to the law. So this gives us the analysis of what our total spending authority is estimated to be for FY19. But what I really want to point out here is the limitation on our fund balance. So school districts are limited to have a fund balance of no more than 20% of the prior year's expenditures. So our FY actual 17 actual expenditures were 52.5 million. So the state says you cannot have a fund balance of more than 20% of that, or 10.5. We have to subtract out what our unreserved, undesignated ending fund balance was for FY17, and then that generates how much we can levy in cash reserve in that year. So that's where that number from the tax rate page that I showed you came from. It is generated by formula. If you wondered why on earth would she levy $810 instead of an even amount, because I'm trying to get every dollar I can in cash reserve. Just to give you an example on the spending authority, so I'm estimating our FY18 fund balance to be $2.2 million. We're going to levy the $6.9 million in cash reserve. We have an estimated unspent authority of 2.9. So when all is said and done, we will have $6.3 million on hand that we would not be able to spend. We would not have authority to spend that. This is my take at trying to simplify the aid and levy worksheet. When you hear about the school aid formula, the formal name for that is the aid and levy. I have tried to put in here, just to make this as simple as possible, to show you what our combined dollars are, and then where all the different dollar or sources of revenue come from to generate that $41.9 million of revenue that comes from the state aid formula. Pages 14 through 21 of your packet is the actual state aid formula. So if you have any time and you want to go through that, I'd be happy to go through that with you. So I always like to show what the state aid formula actually looks like, because it's rather complicated. But this is what ends up the results of the formula. Says this is how much money you will have in each of these categories. So this is a really busy chart. This is all of our bond issues that are outstanding. See if I can get that up a little bit. What I really wanted to point out was the $3,645,000 of pre-levy that I've got in the budget right now. This is how much that I'm estimating that we can pre-levy on the elementary bonds. This is what if the vote would not be successful on April 3rd, this is what we will bring you, but I'm hoping that I'm not going to bring you that. I will probably bring you a resolution for a pre-levy of about $450,000 less than that, and then $450,000 approximately in interest payments for January and June of next year. So while I know how much I need to levy for debt service, I don't know the combination for sure what that's going to end up. I know what our bond payments and interests are. That's solid on the bonds that are still outstanding. But what I don't know is the amount of the pre-levy and the prepayment. I still want, even though we're slowing down the amount of the pre-levy, I do want to say that we still are saving close to $6 million in interest by pre-levying the bonds and getting those paid off when they become callable in 19 and 20. So even though we've had to slow it down, we're still saving a significant amount of interest. And I'm almost done. So one other thing then that I did, this is the capital projects fund part of the budget, and I just wanted to show that throughout 2022 I have estimated the $105 million of bond sales, as well as based on information from Story Construction and Jerry, how much we expect to spend for the new high school and the elementary additions each of those years. So just to show you that in the budget we are projecting that that's happening, and we've got it projected out. There's a little bit of expenditures that Story projects will happen in 2023, but for the most part it'll be done. We'll be done issuing bonds by 2022. I know that was a lot of information in a short amount of time, so I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for Chris?
So at a very high level, from a solvency standpoint, how are we looking financially from a balance sheet standpoint?
As of fiscal year 18, it's dicey. We have burnt through a lot of cash in the last 2 years. With the enrollment increases that we've added a lot of staff. So we definitely need to increase our cash reserve, which is why I've been working with Tim Oswald at Piper Jaffray to make sure that we're maximizing that. We will maximize it this year. We'll maximize it in FY20, and there'll be a little bit left in FY21 that we'll need to levy. We'll make it through this summer, but we certainly aren't where we were a couple years ago. So we just need to get that back, and then as we work with the bond rating companies, explain to them our process for getting our fund balance back up to where it's supposed to be. But
are there any other financial headwinds besides the management fund, that solvency balance? Or
I'm sorry, say that
are there
again.
any other concerns you have, financial concerns you have for our position? And mostly I'm speaking to like the special education budget. I'm just trying to figure out, from Dr. Taylor has told us, we're starting to see more kids come into the district with additional needs. I'm just curious.
Yeah,
where we see
and
this
that's
going.
part of, so there's two things again that we talked about. There's cash and there's spending authority. So cash is my issue this year. I'm low on cash. Part of that is because of special ed and because of the additional programs and expenditures that we've had to do with special ed. We will get the spending authority back for special ed, but we won't get the spending authority for fiscal year 18 back until next January. So it happens in the fall, but how they calculate it into the aid and or the unspent balance worksheet doesn't happen until this time when they send the budget out. So while we have to by law provide the special education services as required by the IEPs, it doesn't help on cash if we don't have the cash on hand to pay for those. That's one of the reasons why we need to get that cash back up.
Thanks.
And Chris, I want to make sure I've got this. So, and just as a reminder for all, our count date, so October 10th this last fall, that's what we get paid for. That's what it drives our spending authority for the next year. But any increases to our enrollment from that time, we can go back to do the increased spending authority to the school board review. Or
if you remember, I brought you
right.
2 different applications to the SBRC last year, and they're done right after count.
Yep.
One is for ELP excess costs, because we spend more than what we get in English language learner program money. And then the second this year was we got a significant amount for increased enrollment. So special ed deficit, increased enrollment, and the LEP excess costs are the 3 things that we get major additional spending authority for.
But you have to have the cash to take care of it until you get
Yes.
some. Yep, thank you. Any other questions for Chris?
Sure, Chris. So the legislation that I alluded to earlier of the backfill, and specifically based on what you just walked us through, what does it look like from your perspective if that backfill and your estimate of $1.2 million would have on us?
It's just under $900,000 in the general fund. It's about 1.3 million district-wide. The other funds I'm not as worried about because I've kind of considered it to be just extra. But when the C&I replacement was put in place, before I got here, it was built into our budget in the general fund. So if that were to be eliminated entirely in one fell swoop, that would be a significant challenge. Coming up with $1 million of cuts is not a fun thing or an easy thing to do. So like I said, I'm not as concerned about the other funds as I am the general fund. You're more in tune what's going on. The last I heard that it sounds like they won't do anything this year because all the cities and counties had to certify their budgets by March 15th. So now to tell them they're going to lose millions of dollars after their budgets have been certified for a month. And every school district in the state this week is most likely getting their budget published. So they're now in the same boat. So at least that would give us some time to maybe think about that. But if they eliminate it for FY19 before they leave for the summer, and why it makes it so, first of all, it affects our cash. It's cash we're not going to get, so it exasperates that. But also, depending on timing, there are very strict statutory guidelines on how we can make staff reductions. So, depending on timing, if we don't know by April 15th at the latest, we can't make major staff reductions. Mandy's nodding at me.
I'm definitely
She doesn't want to go through that.
Transfer process right now, and right now with the enrollment counts that we're working from, in order to keep class sizes at a reasonable spot, we really can't afford to be cutting staff either, so.
So the backfill would be detrimental. The legislation that they are looking at, as we look at the way that we are trying to communicate to the public and representing the interests of the school district, the backfill would be detrimental to us. It would be a difficult thing for us to work through.
And I want to reiterate this because I think Senator Cornbach said this pretty well last Friday, is that this wasn't a tax cut that the state gave away state revenues. It was a tax that the state gave away local revenues. So they were making decisions on behalf of local governments to reduce our tax revenues. And when they did that, they then made a promise that they would replace those lost revenues with state dollars. So now the argument is the state can't afford the replacement of the local taxes they cut.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
Thank you for that discussion.
Thank you, Chris.
And again, we are setting the public hearing. That is what the motion is on the table, and it was moved by Rosser, seconded by Benkin. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. And Chris, thank you again for all of that information. I know it's quite an undertaking. So item 18, open enrollment applications.
Move the board approve the open enrollment applications as presented.
Second.
Moved by Briggs, seconded by Perez. Discussion.
As President Franzen pointed out, open enrollment in does bring with it funding behind each of those students. And so I'm happy to let you know that we have 24 applications total on this board agenda for open enrollment applications.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Items from the board.
I have one. I would like to thank our Director of Facilities, Jerry Peters, for his effort with the Fellows Crosswalk Lights thing over the past several months. He's been great working with the teachers and staff and parents there, but also the neighbors to figure out the best solution. And I'd just like to give him a pat on the back publicly for him and his staff's work in making this all work out for that for Fellows.
I would like to second
Please, no.
Director Rosser on that sentiment. I was at the meeting with the Fellows parents, and you did great. You listened to everybody, and everybody had a chance to voice their concerns or their ideas. So that I was very impressed by the way you handled that. And I also would like to thank the PEPL committee for all your work that you did in that side. So thank you.
I just want to say one thing. Our students never cease to amaze me, and I was reading through the Tribune from March 21st, and the headline was AHS Students Host Voter Registration. And I just really appreciate that we have an engaged student body. And I just want to read one quote because I think it exemplifies what they're trying to accomplish. It says, this is from Thomas DeLay, the co-leader of the Young Democrats. I'm not saying that young people are the example that politicians should follow, but when I see things like this, when conservatives and liberals are working together, it gives me hope for our democracy. We encourage everyone to make their voices heard on the bond issue, as well as in the upcoming Democrat-Republican primaries. We just encourage people, regardless of the ideology, to make their voices heard and use their vote for that. So on that point, I encourage our whole public to come out and make your voices heard at the election coming up.
Director Jerdorf, thank you for bringing that out. Young Mr. DeLay is a real asset to Ames High. I wish he was a junior so he could stick out one more year. What's great little story about that voter registrations is typically that's been done by the AP government class. And it was the students this year that went to Ms. Sullivan and said, hey, we want to be in charge. We want to take this. We want to do it. And that really, that initiative, and they really just picked up the ball and ran with it. And that really, again, you know, when so many people say, oh, those young people, I have great hope for the future based on our students in our district and our universities in the area.
I guess I just want to say that the vote earlier tonight with regards to Durham bus services, it's my hope that the public understands that our improvement of that is not by means an approval of the company and the progress that they have or have not made thus far with regards to their service. It's merely a process that we approve so that we can continue to conduct business as we need to while we try to find a better solution moving forward.
I'll echo, and for those students that are here, thank you, and you do make us proud, so tell all your classmates, okay? Because I was thrilled to read that article, as I love reading any article that comes out about all the amazing things you're all doing. Every level, from preschool all the way up to seniors. So, a couple of updates I have. We do have a superintendent search that is taking place right now, and I know I had someone say, really? I said, yes, because our position was posted for a month, so it's been very quiet on this front. Quiet is over now. So the applications were due last Monday, and so our consulting firm is in the process of vetting those candidates. They've gone through one vetting process, they're going through another vetting process, and they will bring to us, the board, next Wednesday the 4th. We will meet in closed session and look through the top 15, 16 applicants they will bring to us, and then the board will then go ahead and reduce that number to, I say 5 to 6, but in that ballpark for the next week when we will all interview them, and then we will identify our finalists and we will bring them to town the 17th and 18th for a round of interviews. There will be an opportunity for the public to meet the finalists. I believe that Eric sent out an email on that today to everyone. So we are chugging along, and things are going to start to pick up from our end. So we're really looking, I think I can speak for all of the board when I say we're really looking forward to this part of the process moving on. I believe it was mentioned, but I do really want to encourage the community to get informed. We have been, between Dr. Taylor and myself, there have been, I know Dwayne Reeves has been making some presentations. We're really trying to get out, and as you all know, as board members, we cannot tell the public how to vote, but it is our job to go out and to educate the public. So I think we have 2 public forums tomorrow, one at noon at the Ames Public Library, another one at 6:30 here in the district boardroom. I'm also going out to some of our retirement communities. I'm meeting with some of our different organizations in town, as is Dr. Taylor, and really trying to just provide folks the information. And I just really want to impress on the public that it is really our responsibility. As a board, we have provided you with an opportunity. It is your responsibility to get to the polls on Tuesday and provide us direction on how to move forward. So please make sure, as a reminder, April 3rd is when those polls are open. Another thing that was on your schedule or your calendar for upcoming meeting dates for the board, but I do want to let the public know, and there will be far more announcements of this, but on May 21st, that's the date, right? May 21st, I think from 3 to 6, but again, we're still working through the details of this. We are going to have a reception to recognize Dr. Taylor. As we're all aware, he is retiring, and so we will get to work on that, but we did set a date because we do want to make sure everyone can hold a spot on their calendars for that.
And it's in the boardroom here.
And it's here in the boardroom. Thank you. And then one other thing that I want to mention that is over there, if you look over, we have the fresh time check, because we have not presented that yet here at the board table, right?
No, we haven't.
It has been so long since we've had a board meeting, I've kind of forgotten what we have talked about here. But fresh time, for those of you in the public that were aware, for their, I think about a month it was, anyone could come, the customers could come, and they would match a donation. I'm not going to get the specifics of it correct, but we really appreciate their contribution of $7,753.36, and that goes to our unpaid lunch account balance. So we just really appreciate the support of the community that they brought to us. We did not seek, but they brought to us, and it was just really neat to see the ways that a local business can support our school district. I think that's all I have. Any other things from the board? Items from the staff?
Yes. Just a reminder to the board that we will have a joint meeting with United Community on May 7th, and this will include extending the whole grade sharing agreement. Also, last week, the administrative team, actually a subset of us, did a walk through at both Ames High School and at Fellows with a representative from Homeland Security. And this was arranged by Officer Nick Schieffer from the Ames Police Department, who is our school liaison officer. We walked through those two buildings, both internally and externally, in some nice cozy weather, not so much. And we really were looking at different things that might be possible to increase security in each of our buildings, and then applying those across all of our facilities here in the district. So we were really looking to gain insights on how to improve security, and we will also, right now we're kind of collapsing all those things, finding out what's practical, feasible, and what other things we can do, because none of them were suggestions or recommendations, but really simply observations for us to prioritize and attend to. So the administrative team has started doing that with Officer Schieffer. We have also previously met with other members of the Ames Police Department, so that we're looking very comprehensively at all of this, including what responses we can expect and desire from the Ames Police Department. So we've got a lot of suggestions on the table, and then we'll start prioritizing those. Jerry has already started putting those into a spreadsheet for us to look at. We'll reconvene then as an entire administrative team, so that we have multiple sets of eyes on the process and the decisions, and then bring that back as a confidential item for the board at a later date once that process kind of wraps up. You may have heard that SciRide is not going to be picking up and dropping off right in front of Ames High School, but we did a little bit more legwork on that one today and found out that they are still picking up and dropping off at the beginning and the end of the school day, and then during the in-between times, they're actually going to 20th and Northwestern for the SciRide pick up and drop off. So kids will be dropped off at school on time and picked up at dismissal time. That is what our understanding is, with just a little bit more legwork on that one. So summer schedule is still being assessed, so we don't know exactly what to expect in terms of SciRide in front of Ames High School for the summer. And vote on April 3rd.
All right.
go ahead with the board planning calendar?
I was going to say, go ahead with the
All
board
right,
planning.
very
You
good.
betcha.
All right, so on April 9th, we'll have the statutory budget hearing that Chris presented on today. We'll also be looking at meal prices for the next school year, approving the superintendent's or the general fund budget. And we can also expect some updates in April from special education and the teaching and that would probably be, instead of teaching and learning committee, the other TLC, which is the teacher leadership plan. And then on April 3rd, as I mentioned, bond referendum goes to vote. So that's kind of an overview of the month of April.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Benkin, seconded by Perez. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Have a good evening.